Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AM Air Pronouns, and this is episode 32, The Hermit. Um, so, since um, can't think of anything I've got housekeeping wise, so let's dive into it. Alright, so The Hermit, card 9 in the Major Arcana, which means we've been doing this 10 months now. Nice. Um, it's card number 9 in the Major Arcana. It's one that either most people feel pretty neutral about or a lot of people really like because Hermit, introverts, introspection, yada yada. That's what most people think. It's the old dude on a mountaintop with the lantern and the long white beard and a robe, kind of looking down as he's walking along his path. Is the classic RWS image. Um, so yeah, first section of this card obviously is the number 9, the numerology of it. And for that, I have my good tarot card for this, and this one's interesting because there's no person on here. It's just a closed door, an ornate wooden door set in, well, it could be a very fancy stonework wall, or it could even be ironwork, honestly, with the way it's done. Um, I'm pretty sure that's a wooden door. Yeah. And there are 7 skeleton keys of different shapes and sizes kind of strung across the top of the. Well, it's kind. I suppose it's kind of on the door. It's strung across the top door frame, like extending a little bit past the door on either side. So there's a bunch of skeleton keys. So it's kind of like a pick your key. Which one is the correct one to open this door? Um, which is interesting symbology all on its own, as well as the fact that the good tarot, it puts the numbers kind of all over the place on these cards. It doesn't have a set one spot or another because it's a borderless. Um, so this one, the number 9, is actually set in the right smack dab in the center of the door. Like this, here's the spotlight. This is where you're supposed to go, type deal. And again, with the symbolism of these keys, trying to find the right one that opens the door, we have that uh, hermit symbology of the hermit stands for going inwards, of looking internally, of trying to discover the secrets. So there's a locked door and there's secrets on the other side. So you gotta figure out which key is the right one. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So the number 9. So the number 9 it's at the action end of the mind plane. So it's a mind number. It's a mental number. It has to do with the mind, right brain, left brain, all that yada yada yada, logic and reasoning, rationality, and it's at the action end. So, and that's always something that's kind of pointed out and kind of important. It's at this end of the planes, this is where stuff actually starts happening. This is where it's no longer theoretical or maybe I will or maybe I won't. It's now we're doing this type deal. It's the number of ambition and responsibility and idealism. Um, so it's ambition. It's like I've got all these ideas, things I want to do, goals I want to get to, places I want to strive higher for, because the number 9 is at the far end of the scale. It's like I've hit this, I've gone through all this, I can go further, farther. So it's that ambition to go even higher and farther. And the idealism of what else is out there? How far can I go? The sky's the limit. All these ideas. However, it's also a number of responsibility. So it's like ambition and idealism are all well and good, but you have to be responsible. Otherwise, they're going to come crashing down around you. All your dreams and goals will just come crashing down because if you're just haphazardly sticking the Jenga blocks wherever, well, the tower's not going to get very high. Um, It's also the number of war and prosperity for that same reason. It's like there's plenty of ambition to grow your for if we're thinking like say if we think war and prosperity, if we think kind of uh, cliche, there's a kingdom that's trying to expand its boundaries. Well, its ambition is to expand its boundaries to create even more abundance and prosperity for their people, for the kingdom as it is. Well, to get that expansion, there's a couple things they could do. Either they can find land that isn't currently claimed, which is kind of hard, but isn't currently claimed by another kingdom, which takes the responsibility of that ambition. The responsibility here is to slow down and look and find a good spot, or to take that time to let's deal with these other kingdoms instead of maybe expanding our boundaries. Maybe we set up trade deals. Maybe we have something they want, they have something we want. Let's work it out. It's a win-win situation. Or you can get ahead of yourselves and you know what? Fuck it. I want this land. I'm going to take it, and that leads to war, which not a lot of prosperity in there for a little while. But the thing with this number and all of that even is to get there, you have to use your mind. Now, it is on the higher mind. It is the higher scale of this number scale, which means by this point we've already gone through a lot of our physical and our emotional, and we're on top of that. It's interesting how in the 1 through 9, the last number is a mind number. It means the mastery of the physical, mental, and emotional. For one thing, you're going one at a time. It's usually physical, then emotional, then mental. Physical, emotional, mental. Physical, emotional, mental. So we've already mastered the physical by the time we've reached the 9. We've already mastered the physical and the emotional. So we've got all that. We've got that foundation to hold us up as we master our mental. So it's about mental activity, about the mastery of it. Yeah, kind of you see where I'm going with this. You kind of see this. So here in the good tarot, and coming back to this, bringing it back around to this, is we've got that emotional and physical, which means we're pretty well steeped in our intuition, so we can use that to try to figure out the key that unlocks the door. And at the same time, we're having to bring our mind into play because this is a puzzle. And our minds love puzzles. Maybe not everybody's give it that way. Everybody's got different degrees of how many puzzling things they like. Some people like riddles. Some people like simple stuff. Some people like the really, really, really challenging shit. And then there's everything in between. So with unlocking this door, we're having to use both. We're having to mostly use our mind to try to figure it out, but we're also going to need that gut feeling, our intuition that we get from our emotions and our body working together. We're going to need to bring that in, work all three of these together, because that's when things work out well, is when you cut all three of those working in tangent with each other, to figure out the correct key to open the door, to get inside, see what's in there. So yeah, that's the number 9. All right, so the next one is the alchemy. And for this, I have my supernatural tarot because Bobby Singer is just freaking perfect as the Hermit. If you haven't seen Supernatural, honestly, you can look it up on Tumblr. Just search like the tags Bobby Singer or AO3, or even just look it up on Google or something. I do recommend Supernatural. I can only recommend up to what I've seen. From what I hear, the last 2 seasons are also really good. The final episode was apparently pissed off a few people. I only got up to season 13, and then I kind of fell off watching everything, so I gotta get back to it. I might just rewatch all of it and get to the final season. But anyway, Bobby Singer is probably one of the best characters in the whole entire show. He's kind of the chosen dad. He's old, grumpy, liquor drinking, hard talking, cussing. A librarian, actually. He's the one that in the early seasons and even up later they go to for the information. It's like, hey, we've come across something we don't understand, and our research isn't finding shit. What do you got? Because the hunters have the internet, he's got the library with the old books. So he's perfect for the digging in deep, going into finding the obscurities part of the hermit. And even with a little bit of his own character, uh, whatchamacallit, not development exactly, his character arc. He gets a little bit deep inside, like into his own, some of his own shadow side shit. So it's like, and that's something else the hermit does is he digs into the shadow side. It's like, hang on, let's take a look at this. Let's look at our past. And the shadow stuff Bobby Singer gets into is in his past. So in alchemy, the hermit represents the adept who is in but not of the world, seen but hidden from those who seek to profane nature. Profane nature. Okay, I did say that right. Don't know why it felt like I said that wrong. Um, they shut themselves off from the world. There's someone who they're an adept, so they've been doing a lot of work. They're not a master for by any means yet necessarily. They might be a master of something, but they're no longer an apprentice or a journeyman. They're an adept now. So there's certain levels. I forget what all the levels are, but I know that basically. Kind of your intermediate leaning towards your advanced, like just one step below mastery type deal. So whatever their chosen knowledge is, they're in the world. They're they're working in the world. They're doing their stuff. And they know how to interact, but they're not of it. It's there's kind of that separation, a little bit step back. They're not of the world. They're not fully in it and all part of it. They're the ones who can take a step back and kind of hold up. Let's see this from the outside type deal. They're seen, they're noticed. People see them. I mean, they have friends, family, whatever have you, but they're also hidden from those who. Well, this the quote I have seek to profane nature. So those who are like, yeah, no, who cares how it's always been done? We want to change it up to just benefit us. We don't give a crap about what harm it does to others. So, and the way this one is done, and what's coming through is they're they themselves are so part of that sacred nature that they tend to be they're vulnerable to that harm. So they hide from that a little bit. It's like they're vulnerable to that harm, and they will protect what's theirs, but they gotta hide from that those who would just like trample them down type deal. It's very interesting with the alchemy. They're led by an inner light, so they're they don't look to others for guidance. They look to their own inner knowing, inner intuition. They're relying on staff of experience to create new and more perfect forms. So that's both the led by the inner light and the relying on the staff speak to the original RWS thing where it's an old white guy, white bearded guy with a staff and a lantern. So the lantern represents the inner light, and the staff represents the experience, um, their past experience that they've created, and that they're using to help bring them up the mountain to a higher experience. And in this card, he doesn't. Bobby Singer doesn't have staff. He has a book, which honestly speaks a little bit better to the staff of experience because it's like he's about halfway through this book. He's read a lot. He's this is more kind of not experiential knowledge so much as book knowledge, which of course some people will say it's not as good as experiential. Uh, I'm not 100% sure one way or another. I think they both have their very much their pluses and their drawbacks, and you need both. And in Bobby Singer's case, he is he was very much an experienced, actually out there doing it hunter before he became kind of the researcher background type deal. So he's got both that lived experience and the book knowledge type deal. So by relying on this knowledge and stuff, he's able to move forward and be like, to learn more stuff to help find new things and experiences. So, like for example, at least at one point they had to deal with dragons, and he's like, "What the? Where do you want me to find a book on dragons? Hogwarts?" So, but he does come through. So yeah, so that's kind of the alchemy. It's the adept who is in but not of the world, seen but hidden from those who seek to profane nature, and shut themselves off from the world. And Bobby Singer definitely does. He hides away in his house more than anything else. They're led by their inner light and rely on the staff of experience to create new and more perfect forms. So it's someone who's now in the Major Arcana. It is only number 9, and the Major Arcana, as we know, is a progressive story. So even though 9 is coming near the end of numerology, it's still in the Major Arcana. It's like we've built past this major foundation, and now we're kind of having to go inwards to kind of inwards and out of the world to kind of learn more, so we can keep going further, so we can look back at everything we've done and build up towards the next step, which is in itself an interesting segue to the fact that in the astrology, the Hermit card is associated with Virgo, which is the sign of duty, work, and service to others. So again, that building. And here in the celestial card, we've got we've got the goddess Ceres or Demeter as Virgo, and she's sowing grain while holding another sheaf of grain. And she's fully clothed. And behind her, there's a because the celestial tarot likes to do this, is where they'll have a little nod to the original RWS. So in back behind her, kind of as a white ghost form, is that old man hermit in the robe with the lantern, kind of like a ghostly apparition behind, except for the lantern is like solid gold and stuff. Um, so it's usually they give a little bit of a nod to the original picture. So Virgo is connected to the hermit. It's the conscientious, the self-disciplined, reliable, and exacting person. They are a troubleshooter who can spot flaws and fix them. Um, so it's Virgos tend to be, like I said, they're conscientious, they're dutiful, they're doing their service work, they're perfectionists to a little degree, which makes sense because Virgo is a mutable sign. Um, so it's not quite as steady, grounded as, like, say, Taurus is, even though it is an earth sign. But even as that earth sign, it still has that steady groundedness, and it's more Virgo's more detail oriented. But as a mutable sign, they're able to go switch between things very quickly, constantly change, finish this thing up, tie this loose thread, get this done, get that done, and move on to the next thing, finish that up. Find all the little details, nuances, and all the flaws. Virgo is represented by the Virgin, who is someone who's more spiritual than physical, almost holy and pure, holy and pure. So think more like the Vestal virgins, like the virgins who watched the temples in ancient Greece and Rome. Someone more spiritual than physical, someone who's focused more on the spiritual world than on the physical world. They don't give a crap about the physical world. They don't give as much of a crap about the physical world as about their inner spiritual world. Um, Virgo in Latin actually means unmarried or self-possessed. Um, they are someone who gives of themselves by choice, having integrity and staying true to themselves. Um, so that's another thing. It's been pointed out before, and so I'm not going to go too much into it. But originally, the term virgin, before it got extremely Christianized, just meant someone who was most often a woman more often a woman than a man. But basically, someone who was unmarried, and self-possessed. Basically, they weren't someone who hadn't had sex. That was kind of ridiculous. That was a later thing, but they were someone who, how to put this, once I can find the words. They were their own person. They didn't rely on anyone else. That's pretty much it. They didn't rely on anyone else, and they were not beholden to, as for example, a woman. They were not beholden to a husband, to a household. They were their own mistress of the house. They were their own master of the house, to put it more accurately, actually. They weren't the mistress of the house, they were the master of the house. She was an unmarried woman who, yeah, she was kind of in charge of herself. So that was a virgin, someone who was fully in charge of themselves and who could give of themselves as they wanted to in a way that was honest and true to themselves and their own integrity. Um, Hermits are solitaries who light the way for others, rational, practical, and analytical. So that's the other thing about Virgo is rational, practical, analytical, detail-oriented, like we said. And in the Hermit, like I just said, they're solitaries who they light the way for others. They've walked this path before, and they're going to show you how to do it, which is a great representation of a grain goddess who often in myths was the one who grain goddesses were usually the ones who showed humans how to uh, work the fields. So we have that her showing the way type deal. All right, so that's the astrology. Whew. And then the next part is the Kabbalah. And I have my vice versa tarot for that. So on the one side we see the bearded old white bearded old man with the staff and the lantern. Except for he's kind of looking up. His robes, he doesn't actually have a hood on his robe at all. His robe's kind of tattered a little bit, and in front of him there's a golden egg with a snake wrapped around it, which has to do with rebirth, hidden knowledge, all that. Um, the outside of his robe is brown, but he's got kind of a flap here, so you can see that it's blue on the inside, which is a color of wisdom and knowledge. And then on that side of it, we see behind him, he's looking out over a vast valley. He's got two dogs in front of him, a red and a white. So red and white is something to do with alchemy. I know of the red and white stone of alchemy. I can't remember at the moment. There's kind of a seagull in front of him, and then the way his light is shining, you can, for one thing, it's lighting it more than it should, and those mountains way off ahead of him are also starting to lighten up, and it's like maybe the sun's coming up where he's looking. And we can see, what we couldn't see from this side is he's not going down a darker path. He's actually overlooking a vast expanse of land, and there's a moon up here with the moon goddess kind of looking down at him to let him know he's doing the right thing with his intuition. So in Kabbalah, the hermit is associated with path number 20, so the 10th path. It's the path between Chesed and Tiferet. So Chesed is mercy. It's that overflowing, sweet ice cream, sticky candy, no limit, just a flood of sweetness and grace and mercy, and just kind of love. And that path between that and Tiferet, which is the Sephiroth of beauty, the beauty and the harmonious meeting place of the spiritual and the physical. So Chesed is on the left hand pillar, and it's kind of represent, it's the place of overabundance, and then Tiferet is that perfect place of harmony right in the center. That is the meeting place of the spiritual, the divine, all that, and the physical. So in the Kabbalistic tree of life, there are three pillars. My mic's getting in my way, sorry. So there are three pillars, and the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy are mercy and severity. Severity and mercy. I forget which one. And there are three, two, yeah, three sephirots on those. Um, three or four. Now I can't remember. Yeah, three, right? Because there's 10 Sephiroth. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You say, yeah, three, and there's three on each. But anyway, so basically how it ends up going is your top three, your very top one is number one, and that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 in the middle. So basically when we start off in the middle pillar, the pillar of harmony, we're jumping back and after that we're jumping back and forth between severity and mercy, and then we reach Tiferet, which is where we basically go bring all that spiritual down, and then at the very bottom is the heavy duty physical, and we're bringing that up. So Tiferet is the perfectly balanced meeting place of these two extremes type deal. So we're on the path between the overflowing grace and the place of harmony and health. So the hermit goes, it's the path between. So it goes one way to the other and vice versa. So we're either going from this place of harmony to this place of overflowing sweetness and grace, depending on which way you're going. Or you're going from this place of overly abundant sweetness and grace down to some place where it's a little bit more tempered, where things are a little bit more softened. It's like, okay, we don't need this much cotton candy. We're just going to kind of calm down here, sit here, and get really, really feel that in between those two extremes type deal, which it's an interesting spot. So, and I kind of like that because here on the with the vice versa card, because here on this side, the front side basically, it's like we've got this. He's standing on this flat ground, so we've got the physical. There's open sky all around, so we've got that kind of spiritual area type deal. So it's a meeting place of the two. And on that side, we've got this overly huge space of just amazingness, which kind of speaks a little bit of Chasad, which is that overflowing mercy and grace. So we've got Tiferet on one side, Chasad on the other, and he's walking the path between the two of them. So I like that together. All right, so, and, excuse me. Next up, part of the Kabbalah is the Kabbalistic angel. And the Kabbalistic angel is spelled one way and pronounced kind of differently. And so if ever an angel's name starts with an I or an IA, it's Yah. It's not I. So Yabime, Yabamia, Yabamia, very hard name to say, is the angel of the Hermit card. Yabamia, it means word of God creating all. So it's basically the voice that, so even if we want to take this out of a Christian perspective, one thing we know about language is it kind of creates whole worlds. So we think about it's very special. Even spells have to do with words in magic and whatnot. So words are very powerful in magic. Words are powerful in general. If you ever watch yourself kind of talk, like just kind of listen to yourself, listen to how your voice changes, how things shift when you say something you really mean versus something you kind of just blah 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 out there. It's like notice what happens to in your body and in your voice when you mean something. And I'm not sure if everyone can do this, but when I speak words, I can feel kind of their form and shape. I can even kind of picture it in my head a little bit. And I can just kind of sense them in the air as they're out there. They do dissipate to a degree. And it's weird. It's like the form of the words is there energetically. And every word and all of its meanings associated with it. Not only what I mean, but what the other person perceives it as, or even just what it commonly is, like dictionary definition type deal. Like dissipate. If even if I, as I say that word, if I kind of picture in my head, I like see it kind of come out and then it just dissipates. Like it does what it says type deal and what it means. It's so when we have so in mythology, when it's the word of God, God spoke and the word was with God and whatnot, it's because words are so important. Language is a way of creating of um, speaking about what has been created type deal. Even animals with their languages, they mean something, even if it's body language or languages we don't understand. It's all vitally important. It's why in so many cultures, like in the Nordic cultures, with the runes being the realm of magicians, basically. So we have the word of God creating all, is what Yabamia means. Yabamia is actually the first of the Kabbalistic angels we come across who is actually of the realm of the angels, so in the lowest order of the hierarchy of angels. So one of the ones that actually works and does stuff is out in the physical realm doing things at the lowest bottom, which is interesting because it is the word of God creating all. They are the words, the speaking. So, and it's not but it's still very important. It tells us that as important as words are, as important as most things are, honestly, they are there to work. Words are for working with. Words are for using and for doing things with, and just yeah, it's fascinating how it comes together. And actually, Yabamia doesn't have a psalm for those who do psalmic magic. Yabamia is actually Yabamia's verse is actually Genesis 1:1, the very first verse in the Christian Bible. Um, I forget what the actual verse itself is, but I'm pretty sure it's. Oh yeah, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Blah, duh. The most obvious one. That is Yabamia's verse, which is fascinating because when you go farther into the Bible and they start speaking back and referencing to that, it's like in the beginning God spoke and everything happened. So the word is the creator. So Yabamia is that word type deal, or is the representation of that word as an angel. And the angel, and like I said, the lowest hierarchy, so one of the ones who actually works, who comes to earth and does work, which is amazing. That's the only word I can really think of for it. I was gonna try to put it down a little bit, but I was like, no, amazing is just the word that I got with this, and it works out pretty well. And if we're gonna go with the hermit part, it's interesting because Yabamia is holding kind of an hourglass and a scythe, and does look like the old man archetype, just without the robe. But honestly, with the scythe and the hourglass, I'd associate him a little bit with with the Kronos, the god of time, um, or Saturn is the other name for Kronos. So yeah, Yabamia is moving on. Yabamia is he governs natural processes and phenomena of nature and protects those who wish to progress spiritually. So governs natural processes and phenomena of nature. So again, we have the scythe and the hourglass. So it's like when time's up, and things get reaped, and things get sown. It's like everything grows and everything has its end, like in Saturn with the boundaries, the end of things before the next phase type deal. Um, and he protects those who wish to progress spiritually, which makes him good for working with the hermit. So if you're trying to progress spiritually, because the hermit, like I said, as we pointed back with the supernatural one, is kind of vulnerable, kind of usually in a vulnerable place, not really there to protect himself. The hermit is she's someone she's in the middle of work. She's not worried about her well-being or her out of sight, so she needs someone else to protect her, and that's where Yabamiya comes into like, okay, you're doing some serious work on yourself, some serious spiritual work. You focus on that. I got this. I got the shield, so no little nasties, no boogers come in and fuck you up because they're assholes and they think it's funny. So that's what Yabamiya is those who want to progress spiritually. He's someone to call on, especially if you're doing some heavy duty work. And if you do work with angels, it's like I'd say maybe give him a call, see if he's willing to, you know, help you barrier out a bit. Um, those born under Yabamiya will be distinguished by their genius and will be considered one of the great scholars of philosophy. I wish he was one of my angels, otherwise I'd be set in that, but he's not. Sucks to be me, I guess. But he's the sole guardian for those born at 11 to 11:20 p.m. The physical guardian for those born February 28th to March 4th, and the moral guardian of those born March 12th, May 28th. Hey, my mom. Probably shouldn't have said that. August 8th, October 19th, and December 30th. Huh. Distinguished by their genius. Yeah, my mom's kind of a evil genius, I suppose. Especially when it comes to pranks. Oh my God! You don't get in a prank war with my mom; she will win. And she's such a sweet little old lady too. I'm pretty sure it's because she's from Louisiana. She's a sweet Southern lady who will fuck you up. God damn. Um, but anyway, so that's the Abamia. Ticking right along. I'm trying to see if I can get these in 45 minutes or so. Alright, so our second to last card is the being associated with Hermit according to the Fantasy World Tarot, which, yes, I just do this because it's a fun little mental exercise, and I'm going to keep doing it. The creature associated with the Hermit is, of course, the Yeti, or the Abominable Snowman. The Yeti, or Mete in Himalayan folklore, and the Abominable Snowman in Western pop culture, is a large bipedal ape-like creature covered in brown, gray, or white hair, sometimes with sharp teeth. Possibly a descendant of an old glacier being worshipped as a hunt god. So we all know the thing with the Yetis or the abominable snowmen is they hide in caves in the mountains. They've got big feet. They don't like to be seen by people. They come out only when it's snowing. They live in the highest, farthest reaches, which is an interesting parallel to our um, character or archetype of the old wise man on top of the mountain, where you got to work really hard to get up there. So we can see that association with the hermit of that old wise being that's hidden on top of the mountain, and you got to do some work to be able to find him, be able to find the Yeti or the Meta. They're not usually seen as dangerous. They're just very, very shy for the most part. No, as far as I know, nobody's actually seen one for reals, but hell, what do I know? I don't usually go looking for cryptids, and ghosts aren't really my thing, so I leave that up to other people. I find it fascinating to hear about it. That's why I do listen to Darkness Radio, but not really my thing. So, but so if somebody actually has seen one for real, well, I probably don't know about it. Um, da, 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 da. I did find it interesting that the Yeti or the mythology of the Yeti might be descended from what was an old glacier being who was a hunt god basically in the Himalayan regions. Um, Not much I could find on any one thing, so. Which, given the fact that it's a non-white indigenous culture, that's totally surprising. 100% surprising. And yes, that was sarcasm if you actually couldn't tell. Um, well, I figured I'd at least point out it was sarcasm just in case somebody couldn't. Alright, anyway, so our final bit is the traditional readings of the Hermit, and for that we have my mystical cat Stera, which is an old gray tabby, sitting in a pomegranate tree, kind of at night, just kind of looking lazily. Thought when I was closed, it is not. Just squinting, doing the little loaf thing that cats like to do. Um, so the traditional interpretations of the Hermit card are, of course, being alone, looking internally, sitting still, contemplation, looking back over where you've been, where you've come from, seeing how that's helped you get you where you are, and all that. And I find it interesting that what I like about this card is because the cat is sitting in a pomegranate tree, that speaks to actually Persephone, or the the RWS, the Pamela Coleman Smith's version of the High Priestess, where she had a sheet of uh, fabric with pomegranates on it behind the High Priestess, because pomegranates are again associated with Persephone, and they're also associated with, quote, women's mysteries, basically the blood mysteries, periods, people, I'm talking periods, menstruation and all that, and the cycles of the menstruation, the cycles of the uterus as associated with the cycles of the moon and whatnot. And they were known as mysteries because it was something unique to a certain percentage of the population. It's something unique to a certain percentage of the population type deal. Um, and of course, anything kind of associated with women, quote, is of course a mysterious thing that is completely unknown. Well, it definitely was back then. I'll give them that. So pomegranates were associated with that, and again, if we tie that into the Persephone myth, is the other thing I want to bring up, is because Persephone is the queen of the underworld and of spring, the goddess of spring and the queen of the underworld. And pomegranates feature strongly in her story, in case you didn't know, where she basically eats the seeds of a pomegranate tree and now has to live in the underworld for 6 months out of the year, give or take. Well, depending on where you are and what region. Wintertime is because Persephone's not there on the earth. So, um, you can blame her love for her husband, I suppose. Um, yeah, so we have that kind of that underworld tone with with these pomegranates with the hermit of, this is the time the hermit starts looking underground into the underworld, into the spiritual world, um, into the darker areas of the spiritual world. Even here in the background, we have a small sliver of a crescent moon, which very well could be an eclipse. So it's like, okay, all this light, let's kind of block it for a second. We're going to eclipse this. You're going to have to look at the shadow. Um, but yeah, so it's traditionally it's the time of just kind of going inward, of contemplating on the dark things, the past, looking into the shadow by following your own light. The inverse traditional is kind of feeling lonely, cranky, it's dark and scary. It's like, guys, this isn't a good looking into the dark. I'm feeling fucked up and just lonely and depressed and wallowing in the black, as opposed to exploring it, just wallowing in it, feeling cranky because it's dark and scary, and it's not a fun place to be. It's like, okay, you've been down here too long, time to get up. It's springtime, come on, let's go out. It's like if it comes up kind of like that, it's like, okay, yes, it's very fun to explore down there, and it is fun to kind of be down there, but you can't stay down there forever. There's a reason we end up with springtime. Out you go. It's like it kind of just maybe back off from the heavy duty spiritual wanderings and go watch a fucking movie. and not a doc. Go watch a movie. Basically, it's like, okay, get out the head and the mystical books, and get yourself into something lighter, like go play outside type deal. All right. We just hit 45 minutes. Oops. All right. So that is the Hermit card for today. So, if you enjoyed this, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you always know when another video comes up. You can find me on Facebook at Bags and Omens. You can find me if you got questions or you want to get a read. You can email me at bagsandomens@gmail.com. I also have all the services on my Facebook page, for readings, and my Facebook page is actually pretty well updated. Nice. So finally, and yeah, I'm gonna call that it. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I will see you next month with the Knight of Wands as our first episode. And yeah, thanks y'all for watching and being here, and have a great rest of your whatever. Bye.